ever since. I'm trying to work and educate patients. So that's what landed me here. But what landed me as a medical cannabis patient, I kind of have a long, boring story of pain and trauma, but I'll break it down for you really quickly. In 2004, I was dragged by a drunk driver and lost my ability to walk. I had several reconstructive surgeries on both of my legs. I've had surgery in every orifice, if you can imagine, and have had a lot of trauma and pain and frustration and struggle in trying to find what works and what doesn't work for me. I had a 4-year-old son at the time, my own apartment, and couldn't walk, could barely sit up without going into shock. I was prescribed over 21 pharmaceutical medications, to which I had a lot of side effects, hence the needing more medications, and just kind of became a zombie, and I was really frustrated. I was kind of, fighting for a path on Social Security and being handicapped and very young and just wasn't sure what to do. So I had always been a proponent for pot in general. Used to drive around with literally a sunflower on my antenna. But I decided to take medical cannabis a little bit more seriously and learn about, what kinds, what strains, those words that you hear. What's the endocannabinoid system? Why does this work? Why doesn't that work? And start to really kind of put a fire under everybody's butt and learn. So I started wheeling myself up to the State House and rallying and testifying and working towards getting some of these laws changed. So as the law stands in Rhode Island right now, you can grow up to 24 plants if you are a medical cannabis patient and caregiver, 12 plants if you are a patient. So folks can grow their own medicine. I'm not sure what the law is. I'm sure you guys can touch on that. I don't think there's any home cultivation rights, but we can certainly work together because I truly feel like as this vertical integration and dispensary life kind of comes into play, it's important that we keep the small farmers and the cannabis connoisseurs and people like me and Lewis in the back, we'll introduce you to in a little bit, kind of in the game, because we're the ones that have the experience and kind of will be more than willing to work with you guys one-on-one. So along the way, long story short, I'm on 0 pharmaceutical medications. I take a Flintstone vitamin now at night, 2 of them because I'm gangsta. And that's about it. That's all I take. I take some turmeric sometimes. Every once in a while I take some ibuprofen, but my main medicine now is medical cannabis. So I use it mainly in edible form because I find that that's what works best for me. That's what got me into the baking. When I was on all sorts of morphines and Oxycontins, and I couldn't even hold down food at the time because the medicine made me so sick. So I had to find something to replace that. So why the edibles work is because there's a lot of bioavailability with edibles, and when you eat them, they have a longer duration of effect. So they take a little bit longer to kick in, but once you can get that balance, you can titrate that dose in your body, you get a lot better effect. So we can talk, and I want you all to feel like you can ask me as many questions as you want about what's going to work and what doesn't, or feel free to reach out to me afterwards. But I just kind of played around with different dosages, figure out what worked and what doesn't work. And what I found worked is sublinguals, things that go under your tongue, drops, concentrates that I can smoke in my vape pen or on a dab, and edibles. So that's kind of what I use for myself for pain and to help me sleep at night, and sometimes I use a little bit of flour in a pipe. For other folks, depending on what they're treating, there was a time where I had an endometrial mass that they thought was cancer. So I ended up kind of increasing my dose and went right on the Rick Simpson's oil, which is a really strong protocol for cancer treatment. And drinking like bone stews and cinnamon and honey and turmeric and all the other natural dandelion, things like that are natural alternatives as well. So one of the things that I want to promote is working with Dr. Pecher, not just on medical cannabis, but also other herbs, other supplements that you can take to kind of replace some of the pharmaceutical medicines that you're on, because I find that the cannabis works better when we have a sort of cleaner system. The beautiful thing about cannabis is we have an endocannabinoid system in our body that's pretty untapped, right? A lot of us are newbies to this or haven't really tried cannabis that much. So while we may have used the opioid receptors or system for pain management, we haven't really used the cannabis endocannabinoid system that much. So it really only takes a little dose to go a long way with. So knowledge is power. Kind of always bring a buddy into the dispensary with you. Feel free to ask questions, because the quicker that you ask a question to somebody that's been through, the less money you're going to have to spend and the more relief you're going to get. So I can kind of stop babbling about my story and where I come from. I'm not sure if anybody has any questions as of yet about the endocannabinoid system, types of cannabis. I know you're taking notes over there. Is there anything that you had a question about yet?
I'm not going to be on TV, right? In this
No.
position? Yes, I want to use it for bipolar. I have medically resistant in like 6 years. And I was able to get it because I took enough drugs, but anyway. Nothing works. I was told in the beginning I tried the strip under the tongue, and I was told to start with 1/16. I ended up with 2 full strips. Nothing.
Okay.
I've tried the edibles, I've tried vaping, I've tried pills, and then the drops. Nothing works. But I also found out, so I took like 4 really strong drinks that a mixologist made for me, and nothing, it did absolutely nothing.
So as far as the edibles are concerned, I can say that there's kind of some new science coming out that we actually have an enzyme that converts in the liver that actually allows for that bioavailability or uptake. So some folks don't have that, and if you don't have that, you're not going to convert it and you're not going to feel it. So that would be true to anything that goes under your tongue, any type of pill, capsule, swingle, or edible, would not have an effect in you even if it was already activated or carboxylized. But cannabis smoking, like the vapor pen, should still affect you. So I think sometimes what we need to do is just take a step back from just trying everything all at once and just try one thing and kind of build our dose on that, and then if that doesn't work, springboard from there. I can smoke flower all day long and it really does not treat my pain or my anxiety or those symptoms. Sometimes, in fact, it makes my anxiety worse. So it's different strokes for different folks. So I can certainly kind of talk to you about, on a personal note, about what you're looking to treat, what symptoms you have, some strains that we know of. I can probably put you in contact with Lewis directly. He's a great resource and kind of connects patients and caregivers, all up and down the East Coast. So if he doesn't have something specifically that you need, I'm sure he can get you connected to somebody who does. So we'll work it out. I was in a place where nothing worked for me either. I was suicidal, I was at my wit's end, I was done, right? And so we find it, right? And now I find that I don't even really need that much, right? Because I was seeking sort of feeling of what the pharmaceuticals gave me. You know what I mean? And I had to kind of step away from that a little bit and figure out what it felt like to feel again or to enjoy these simple little things. So we'll get you there.
Thank you.
Welcome. So did anybody else have any specific questions?
I just wondered, I've been trying for about a year to get on a dose. I have severe lower back pain. I had everything wrong with my lower back that you can have. And I had surgery as a last resort 3 months ago, and that didn't do anything. I've been on gabapentin, and I hate that, and I'm just about off of it. But I also have a type of leukemia that and my platelets are low, so I can't take any NSAIDs.
Mm-hmm.
So my only choices are opioids or this, and this is what I want. But I haven't found dosaging, I've been vaping and this and that, but nothing consistent, because I don't know.
So consistency is key. I was just about to say that. So unfortunately what some folks think is, just like with pharmaceuticals, I'll go back to that and I might repeat that a lot, but that's kind of how it works, right? An ibuprofen, you take it 3 times a day and it's supposed to work for that whole time. Well, until you figure out what your dose is and get to that point, you're going to have to play around a little bit. What I found works best for me is microdosing, which means take less but more often throughout the day. It helps me stay in control of how I'm medicated and allow me to function better as a mom or out in society and do the things that I have to do and remain medicated. But sometimes less really is more, and sometimes what happens is when we're over sort of entrenching the receptors with the cannabinoids, they become blocked. So sometimes if we don't, we'll buy something, we'll buy a tincture for $80 at the dispensary, and then we'll keep trying it, keep adding, and it might just not be the thing, we might not be reacting to it and kind of overloading our receptors and not getting any relief from it. So if you find out for a couple of tries and you've bumped your dosage up and you're not finding relief, that's probably just not the strain for you, and you should just move on to something else. But
I've been moving on. I've got a whole bunch of different things that I haven't really.
yeah, so we'll go back to the consistency is key thing. So
where do we start?
So I would say you start low and slow. That's what we call it, right? It's kind of an industry term, low and slow. So start on a very low dose. What do you have at home? What do you have at home?
I have some,
Is it like a
no,
drop?
I've been vaping,
Mhm.
and I have some,
Vaping out of like a pen that's like pre-filled like a
Yeah.
cartridge? Okay.
and I have some stuff I put in my oatmeal,
Like honey?
honey, and I didn't feel anything from that.
Okay. So the honey that you're probably getting is like a very low dose, like a 20 milligram dose comes like in a white bottle.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so it's so low. That vape pen, so low. With what you're up against right now, I can see why it's not even like affecting you. So when I say low dose, it may be 30 milligrams, because when we're treating something like chronic back pain and leukemia, a low dose for you isn't necessarily going to be the low dose for somebody else who's treating, say, just a mild pain or an anxiety or something like that, right? So for you, right, I can look at what you have, but I was going to say the honey's probably just not even the thing for you at all. You need kind of a balance, like a 2-to-1 of a THC and a CBD, probably a concentrated dose of both.
I don't think I've had enough THC.
Yeah, I don't either. So I don't think anybody in the world could ever have enough. Yeah, so stop maybe, unfortunately what's happened was, and it's great that everything's being tested and regulated and we know what's in it and everything, but now it's like uber complicated because you have so many letters and numbers and what the heck is THC, what is THCV, what does this convert to, what is decouple, what do all these things even mean, like, and then you're comparing those little things. Don't worry about that. Two main things, THC and CBD for now, right? Is it an indica strain or a sativa strain? We'll talk about that really quickly, okay, because there's two different kind of main strains that you work with, sativas and indicas. Sativa starts with an S and indica starts with an I, right? So easy way to remember. Indica, think in the couch, relaxation, nighttime, pain management, sedation, pain relief, relaxing, munchies, things like that, right? But some people need an appetite stimulator, right? If you're going through a treatment or something like that, right? You may want a type of medicine that stimulates an appetite. So, and then sativa starts with an S, so think more soaring, cerebral, energetic, uplifting, meditative, you know, that kind of medicine. A lot of folks with wasting syndrome or bipolar, depression, you know, things like that, pain management will need a sativa to kind of get them going throughout the day. So there's two main kinds, and it's important to just pay attention to the type of medicine that you're ingesting and then the strength of it, right? So those tinctures, some of them come in only a 5 milligram dose, some of them come in a 50 milligram dose, right? Personally, knowing the type of pain that you're in, I would buy the more concentrated form because you can always just take a drop instead of a dropper full, but you can always build your dose up accordingly to what you need, right? So I personally would probably just work with you if that's okay a little bit and kind of see exactly what you have at home and look at the menu of the dispensary that's closest to you. It's okay, we can, you know, communicate on the phone or something, but that way I can look at exactly what you have and we can build your dose up accordingly. But most folks, I find, like in your situation, are like at least at 30. Some folks can't even handle like 2.5 or 5 milligrams, but then other folks, you know, they take 100 and nothing affects them. But somebody like you who you're just coming off of, you said 3 months ago you had back surgery, so you're just coming off, you still have probably, you know, heavy meds in your system, and so it's going to take a little bit more, and that's okay. But we'll find what works for you. And again, if you can't find it where you're at, there's resources out there to get it for you. But sublinguals, great. Under the tongue, great. Edibles, generally great. We just have to find the dose that works for you. My friend Chris is back there, I can tell you she's tried other people's edibles, pills for days, this, that, the third. My edibles work for her, right? So it's about what goes into it. It's about the strain that goes into about how is it decarbed. You know, I'll be the first one to say I'm biggest proponent in the world for dispensaries, but there's a little dash of love that's missing from that sometimes, right? And it just doesn't work. And unfortunately, a lot of folks are going there. The people behind the counter can't give you the information. They can only dispense it to you, right? And you guys are left spending a lot of money without the education. So gratefully, you know, thankfully she's made this place, and just to connect us all, and it's at least just to give, you know, a leg up on, hey, what am I taking? How should I be taking it? Because it literally could be the matter of combining one more thing, like adding in an extra puff of CBD, and then it kicks in that THC for you. Or maybe there's something in it that you should, you know what I mean, it's not working. But we'll figure it out and we'll explain it to you like kind of like a math teacher that makes 1 + 1 make sense for you. Specifically.
Is there any difference on the edibles versus the pills? How it affects you?
It depends on what's in it and how it's decarbed, really. Yes and no. It depends on who makes it. In general, a lot of larger scale operations will use the same concentrate in a lot of their products. So the only difference might be that in the vapor pen, the concentrate might be mixed with a propylene glycol, and the capsule it might be mixed with a coconut oil or an avocado oil or something like that.
But it would be the same as eating it, whether it's a pill or in food.
In generally speaking, yes. The difference is, in the pill form, sometimes I like the pill form because sometimes I like a more immediate relief, and I like to be able to crack my capsules open and put it under my tongue sublingually. So having it in the capsule form gives me 2 methods of ingestion now, because I can either swallow it and wait for a less rapid onset, or I can break my capsule open, put it under my tongue, and I get a quicker, more sublingual relief. So having those on hand sometimes, you know, become more of like a rescue mat or kick in quicker. For me, I find that the edibles last longer, and it depends on who's manufacturing or what type of capsule it's in. And you can ask that because sometimes if it's in a cheaper capsule, it'll kind of get all eroded and get eaten up by those stomach acids, so you do lose a little bit of the potency there. So in those terms, if you're going to take a capsule, actually suppository is best. Depends on what you're treating. If you're treating like an MS or severe chronic pain or a cancer, I'm always going to suggest a suppository because it's more of a direct hit and the best uptake. You don't lose any of the medicine being broken down to kind of be converted into your bloodstream that way.
I have a secondary question, if you don't mind. I was happy to hear that you had success in eating it for your pain. So I have severe leg pain, multiple surgeries. I haven't tried to eat it. I get some relief from the concentrate, smoking it, but I want to start eating it, especially after listening to you. So what do you recommend? I mean, I don't have a problem with that dose-wise, but I don't know what to do as far as eating it goes.
Well, anything that's like low sugar edible is usually better. So like I like gummies because you can either do a no sugar Jello or a low, it's pretty low sugar and you can concentrate it quite a bit. Or a hard candy, something like that you can suck on sublingually because again, that's going to kick in quicker. Those are the ones that I like. Or drinks are
Do you
great.
feel more relief like in your muscles eating it versus
Exactly.
smoking it?
Mm-hmm. So picture like think of like a pain pill versus that's just kind of block it, like what those concentrates do when you smoke it. You kind of forget the pain, but it doesn't all the way go away.
Yeah.
When you start ingesting edibles or CBDs and tinctures and things like that, it takes a little bit longer to work up that level in your system, but you do get like a deeper rooted relief, similar to like more of like a muscle relaxer would give you than a pain pill. So you want to just kind of find that balance before you like start to feel like Jello, but where they start to feel pain free type of thing, But absolutely, yeah, it's a different. Edibles create a longer, sort of slower, more looser body high. Whereas the smoking is more in your head.
And I noticed the pills go from 10 to 250. I'd be
Yeah, so welcome to
definitely
marketing
afraid
101
to
in the
take
dispensary.
250. I don't know what the heck that would do to you, but do you have any recommendations where to start?
Generally, I wouldn't go any higher than 10 if you haven't started
For
any.
eating?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just because you don't know how it's going to affect you. It's a pretty safe bet that you're going to be okay and potentially need a little bit more if you're already onto the dabs, but you never know. So you always want to start low and slow. Like I said, you can always take more and build from that, and microdosing is best. So yeah, so me personally, even though I dab and I've been taking medical cannabis for a long time, I really don't need any more than like 30 milligrams of a properly decarbed edible to get me back where I need to be, because I'll medicate with a dab or hit off my vapor pen in the middle, and then I'll take a gummy or a piece of candy here, you know what I mean? So it's no different than kind of rotating.
What's the decarb mean?
So decarboxylation is a process where it's activating the cannabinoids to make them available for uptake in your system. So when you smoke cannabis, you apply heat to it, right? And that decarboxylates or activates the medicine. There's oils inside of it, and those need to be heated up to a certain temperature to have an uptake or to affect you or get into your system. So when you're making an edible, you have to decarb or apply heat to the medicine first in order to activate it, because when you're eating it, you won't be applying heat in
I
that
assume
stage.
the dispensary's doing that for us,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I would hope so. But these are good questions to ask, Feel free to ask, what temperature do you decarb at? Like, knowledge is power. So walking in and asking them, because, if they cook they could be properly decarbing, but then if they cook their brownies at 350 degrees, well, THC burns off at that temperature, right? So it's about, when we want to make sure we hold these folks accountable, or at least make sure that they have the knowledge, because they can't go to school for it yet, or like they could, but not anymore. Make sure that they understand the science behind the medicine.
What temperature do you decarb it at?
I decarb at 240
And
for
how
26
long?
minutes,
26 minutes. No matter how much you.
no matter how much. What you're looking for when you decarboxylate the medicine is you're just looking for the CO2, the carbon molecule, to be broken down. So I don't know if you've ever seen like the oil being purged.
Yeah.
Okay, so those bubbles that you see, those are those carbon molecules being broken down. You can open your oven door when you're decarbonizing oil and watch to see those bubbles. Once those bubbles dissipate, they're gone, and then you know it's decarbed. If you want to decarb it all at once, you can lay it like on a parchment or a silicone slick, and then just you just have that already decarb medicine ready to go. Yeah. And we can come back to these things. I want to kind of expand on these things and start hosting classes and hands-on discussions and things like that where we can consult with you guys, whether it's one-on-one or in a group. Kind of teach you how to the different methods, the sort of different umbrellas of ingestion that they fall under, how to cook with it. You know what I mean? There's topical forms that you can use for your legs that work great. I had a patient that had this swollen up got knee with water on it for 10 years and a cane. He used a topical, that's all it took, and the CBD topical, and it brought that swelling right down. So yeah, CBD topical tends to be great, and the beauty of that is it cannot, topical in that form cannot break through the blood-brain barrier, so therefore it cannot get into your bloodstream. It would never show up on a test, it would never sort of affect your brain in a psychotopic way, so it's purely medicinal in that form. Did you have any more questions about the decarb or how to?
No, that was my only.
Some folks like it a little bit lower temperature for longer.
Yeah, exactly.
Some folks will turn it up a little bit for shorter. That's just what I found works perfect for me. But I have an old school apartment stove and I just know the line. You know what I mean? I just go to that line and hit 26 on my microwave. So it's like it's a science. And once you get in that repetition, that consistency, once you find that that recipe, it's science.
I actually do have one more question. Do you use coconut oil when you bake?
Sometimes, but I'll keep it 100% real with you. I have an irritable bowel syndrome and a little bit of diverticulitis, so coconut oil is not the best for me. It runs right through you.
It works activating the THC better.
Yep, so I found that it creates a good potency. There's certainly, cannabis will attach to a lipid, right? So coconut oil has a high concentration of fats or lipids in it, right? So when you're combining the two, you're going to get a higher concentrator, you're going to get a lot more of the medicines to stick to that coconut oil, right? That's why they do butter, or you can make a milk or things like that out of it. But an avocado oil will work just the same. Yeah, and it won't cause. So sometimes when working with patients like myself or other folks that may have other digestive issues to consider, you have to be careful, you know what I mean, with what you put in it, because it can make them not feel too good.
What about grapeseed oil?
That works as well. Yeah, I actually was making topical with that for a long time, and a bath, CBD bath drops with that as well. But yeah, you can, anything that has a fat, so any type of oil, vegetable oil, right, a butter, or milk, or anything that has a fat in it, that's why the honey, it all attaches to that. Once you can get it to bind to that, you're just creating a base. So if you want a healthy recipe, get it to bind to vegetable oil or to olive oil. And then you just make a salad dressing out of it, or drizzle it over your chicken, and make a balsamic. You can do anything that you want that has a fat in it. You don't have to just make brownies and things like that when you're baking with it. Anybody else have any questions so far? Well, I've been teaching them all along, but I don't know, we can talk about it and see, what the availability is, what it will look like. But I'm happy to teach it, sooner the better. I'm a firm believer in teach one, reach 10. So if you want to talk and if I can teach you something, then my only thing I want is for you to teach someone else. So we can do it over the phone and until we get there.
I know someone who has cancer, serious. Will medical marijuana, is it capable of curing cancer or just treating it?
I've seen medical cannabis cure cancer. I can't stand up here and say it's the cure for everyone. Everybody's body's different. But I've seen it cure people. I've seen patients that are on hospice where the Western medicine's just kind of said there's nothing else we can do for you. And then those patients become so desperate that they turn to medical cannabis and suddenly their scans start coming back better and the doctor's like, I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it. Reason why is I can point you in the direction of some simple videos. So Run from the Cure, it's a Rick Simpson story. You can get it right on YouTube in the full version. It's kind of scientific and boring, but it teaches you about cannabis concentrate, and it teaches you about a process that happens inside the body where cannabis in essence attacks and kills cancer cells. So you can watch that happen in videos, and it's just it's a known thing. The Cancer Institute and all of these places have come out and admitted that high concentrations of THC can attack and kill cancer cells, so they're just doing different studies on it. The only thing that I can say is it's not the cure-all. It does not work for everyone, and there are certain types of cancers that don't respond well to it. Estrogen-based cancers, breast cancers, certain things like that are much better treated with the CBN, which is a different type of CBD, than THC, because THC is actually known to cause tumor growth in breast in certain types of estrogen-based cancers. So again, knowledge is power. Know that it's out there. It's just which type works for which patient. There's different DNA profiles that are in these plants, and that's why the research and the testing is good in those instances when we're talking about strengths and concentrates, because we can make sure we target specific doses based on the diagnosis.
What do you know about prostate cancer? Have you heard of that being?
Yeah, that's where the suppositories come in. So that's when you go for it. That's when you don't play. Yeah, prostate cancer, I'll keep it real, it's not a great diagnosis to have. And any patient that I have that's ever come to me, I've immediately recommended a high dose concentrate of THC in a suppository form. We don't play around with that one.
Do you find it's better to eat sativa or indica?
Indica. Yeah, most edibles will be made from an indica because
Oh, okay.
that's or a hybrid form where, you have mostly indica, because those are generally the type of benefits that you're trying to get. So if you want that relaxation, that pain relief, that calming, that's what an edible generally does. Sometimes folks will use in a hard candy to use a sativa dominant oil because you're looking for that daytime, get me through my day pain relief, but generally speaking, it's an indica dominant strain.
Yes, I
Hi.
have a quick question.
I remember you.
Yes,
Yeah.
I saw you a few months ago. You're doing the same thing, only I think I sat up front that time.
I think you did.
But,
How are you?
I'm fine.
Good.
Quick question. I've been doing a little bit of weed, experimenting with it, and I found mostly the pills at night help me the most because I sleep like a baby. Go to bed, wake up like 10 or 11, or later,
Good.
which is good. My question though is I saw my kidney doctor yesterday. Yesterday. He's looked at some of my readings and he said that would be an indication that you've been smoking. And I said, well, yeah, I do read a little bit. I've done maybe 15, 20 joints. And he says to me, well, it's driving your bone marrow, whatever, the levels up. Have you heard of that?
Your white blood cells?
Probably red
Oh,
blood
red.
cells.
Yeah, that's better.
From any smoking, any type of smoking,
Is that,
yeah.
so what am I supposed to do? I mean, I'm trying to get my receptors to fire so I can feel something, like if I take it.
Well, did he mention that they're getting raised to an alarming level, or just that they're being raised? Because it's okay. There's a range that they're allowed to be.
It was pretty high.
Okay. So, how much are you smoking?
I probably did maybe, in the last 3 months, maybe 10, 15 joints.
See, that's alarming. That shouldn't raise it
Yeah,
at
that
all.
shouldn't do that.
Like at all. So I would start looking into the air quality at your house, things like that, because there's a lot of other things that could be raising it. 15 joints is, we're talking like,
I mean, you'd have to,
but you're worse breathing in this parking lot out here. But what are you smoking it out of though? Are you smoking out of papers or glass or?
well, I did it with the paper, and then I tried it in one of those little glass things a few times.
So a couple things I'll say on that. In smoking cannabis, cannabis on its own is healthy for you if it's grown properly without synthetic nutrients, because those things can be like poison, right? If it's not sprayed with chemicals or anything like that and it's properly tested, cannabis is an amazing medicine. The second we start putting it in Chinese glass that's full of lead, the second we start putting in those white papers that are like easy widers or things like that, they're bleached, and those can start to put toxins into your body. If you're already fighting off other illnesses or up against a battle, it's the last thing that you want to do. So American-made glass, you might pay a few more bucks for it. Hemp papers, which are derived from the hemp plant, the stalk itself, are a great option. The glue on it is natural, but you really also have to be cognizant of what you're smoking it out of and where you're getting it from as well.
Well,
But
I get it from the dispenser.
Yeah, I can tell you I smoke
I don't buy it on the street.
15 joints a day and my red blood cells are not up. So I would seriously consider maybe an air purifier or something like that.
Well,
And
the kidney doctor said the CNMD.
Yeah. yeah, so maybe just go to your doctor and just say, hey, this level's up. Maybe we need to do, a more in-depth
Yeah, I'm
panel.
a complicated patient.
And then
I had
go from
people
there.
tell me that, right, Doc? I'm a complicated patient. I had the guy ahead of surgery, Dr. Argus, tell me I was a complicated patient.
Yeah.
And he said, well, I got 3 things for you. You can try opioids, America, neither one of those worked. When I took the opioids, I didn't feel a thing.
Nothing, right? Yeah.
Not a thing. Of course, maybe they didn't fire or whatever. But yeah, he said I was a complicated.
I mean, all of us are tricky. I mean, I'm morbidly obese, and my doctor said I have the blood work of 120 pound blonde, and I don't have high blood pressure. I'm diabetic. Figure it out. I attribute it to the cannabis use. I really do. But I mean, we're all complicated in certain ways. But I'm just saying that there's something. A lot of times, being a medical cannabis patient, I guess, just to tie that up, a lot of folks will blame it on, oh, you're a medical cannabis patient. Oh, it's your smoking, right? Or oh, you have an ache. Oh, you're overweight, right? Well, no, guy, I need you to, I need a deeper opinion than that, right? So don't let him just point the finger at the cannabis, because there could be something else going on, is all
He
I'm
asked me
saying.
if I was smoking, I told him I wasn't, and then I remembered that I had done
Yeah.
cannabis.
I'm not a doctor, she is, and she's saying it's pretty slim to none that would cause it. Sometimes all I'm saying is doctors just like to point the finger at that as the problem, rather than looking a little deeper, so I'd certainly dig into it a
I'm
little
not
more.
gonna like put me a little bit more, should I still do it at all, or?
Yes. Yes, that's what I think.
Yeah, maybe just change, if it's not helping you, then change the form.
Yeah.
Change the form.
Yeah.
Have you done edibles?
Not yet, but I've done the vape pen, and I do the pills, and I've had good luck with the pills.
Yeah.
Good.
The vape
yes,
pen,
yeah.
I get a little tired after a couple hours, but that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
I don't get much relief from them either. They're pretty weak. And sometimes if they're infused with that propylene glycol, that's terrible for you, or flavor or things like that. You don't want that. So I would just go to your MD, ask for, more of a workup, and then, kind of go from there with it. But just be aware of what you're smoking and what you're smoking it out of. And know that it could be, but it could totally
I
be
didn't mean
something
to
else
ask
as
a
well.
question.
No, it's not. It's
No,
relevant.
no.
The benefit has to outweigh the risk, right? That's it. Benefit outweighs risk. So if your red blood cells are up a little bit, but you're able to walk and talk and function and eat, then the benefit outweighs the risk. If it's not, then it's not. So you just want to kind of just know what's going in your body, pay attention to it, but don't lose hope. If the doctor's like, you can't smoke anymore, well, he's not telling you can't go outside. He's just saying you have to try to find a different method to use it, and there's plenty out there, so that'll work.
In Connecticut,
So-
you have to make your own
What is it?
suppositories, they don't sell those in the dispensary.
Yeah. I personally think if anything's going up my fazul, I think I'd like to make it myself, actually.
Yeah, there's recipes to do
So
it.
it's not rocket science. It's, the oil is already decarbed, that comes in that syringe. So it's something as simple as mixing it into a coconut oil or something that makes it, bioavailable. But, all you have to do is buy the capsules online, and it's just a capsule that dissolves a little differently. Just Google them, and they're cheap, and you can buy them. If you want to buy the oral ones, you do the 0.0 ones. They're, Vitaglow makes a good one. There's plenty of places that make them on Amazon for $8, super cheap. So it's very accessible, to be able to make the medicine and stretch it out to the way that you need it. And so that's some of the stuff that we'll talk about with you as well, is what's going to get you where you need to be, the easiest. So I don't want you to, like we walk around, I don't know about you, and you probably haven't yet, 'cause not yet, but when I was 25 years old, I had a pill thing like this, and it was like, okay, on Monday at 7:30 and Monday at 8:15, and I was like, my God, I felt like literally like in jail to this pill container, and I would never want someone to have to feel like that's what you have to transition to when using medical cannabis is, okay, now I'm gonna take my teaspoon of honey, and now I need to take my capsule, and so that's not the name of this game. The name of this game is finding something that works and then just being consistent in that. So, did you have any questions?
I have a question. So I was under the impression that when you get approved for medical marijuana in Connecticut, that you go to a dispensary and that there's a pharmacist that you meet with who looks at your profile and what you're, why you're there, what the use would be,
Yeah.
and then works with you to set up an individualized plan.
Yeah.
It sounds like
That's not what
listening to all these folks,
No.
that's not what happens, and that you go
So I don't understand,
So,
it sounds like people are just.
Jonathan
trying to
Harris
buy-
actually came to a presentation that we did, I think, the first
Yeah.
time, right? And he's the commissioner of public health, he does all the licensures for gaming and things like that, and I'm looking forward to working with him and kind of helping him realize the actuality of what it looks like to go into a dispensary, because, yeah, it's a great idea to have a pharmacist there, but what the heck pharmacy school teaches the endocannabinoid system or medical marijuana? They don't. My people teach that, right? We're the ones that have gone through that. So there needs to be some form of certifications that are allowed in these dispensaries, that they allow folks like me, frankly, with the knowledge, to come in and work with patients who need that knowledge, right? Even if it's on okay, we have a class once a month and you have a group of 300 come in, but there's got to be a way to get this knowledge to the patients in a way that's accessible to them, or allow us to at least work behind the scenes with these pharmacists. Because in pharmacy school, that again, in were you ever taught the endocannabinoid system? So until pharmacists are taught the endocannabinoid system, and until we start working together, but that's what we're doing, right? That's what we're doing here, is providing an outlet. This is about creating access. Connecticut, you're in a really good place here. Your program was slow to start, but boom, and your dispensaries were open, and at the very least there's access, right? So now we just need to kind of, unfortunately, we moved very quick, and folks followed a model that they thought was gonna kind of roll right into the actual pharmaceutical, and it's not. This is a different medicine, so we've got to treat it accordingly to that and kind of get the folks behind the scenes that are knowledgeable. So no, unfortunately, you're gonna walk in there, 'cause in Massachusetts, they can't consult you at all. They can't even make a recommendation. They say, here's the case, 8750, bye. That's it. They cannot give you any type of consultation, it's illegal. So we're still working out those kinks, but don't sweat it, because I work with patients on a regular basis who sometimes will go over the menu, we'll figure it out, we'll send them in, I'm on the cell phone, or or somebody is, or we've communicated with the dispensary, hey, there's a mobility issue, can we send so and so in with them, or something like that, so that we make sure that every patient has the support that they need while they're figuring out what works and what doesn't.
Okay, and so how did you get educated? How do you know what you know?
In these streets. Honestly, it's a lot of self-reflection. It was a lot of self-knowledge. It was a lot of Googling and a lot of trying to create meetings, and I had DCOF at my house trying to take my child away from me. I had the state police testifying against me when I was testifying. It was a lot of just kind of pushing forward and just believing the people that it was working for in their altruistic way of just saying, like, if you told me this helps you, I have a moral obligation to keep doing it. And so if this doesn't work, I'll try this, right? So how I learned it was just in self-seeking that knowledge. And then I had some friends that opened a college up in Massachusetts, and so I helped them write some of their books and kind of got signed up to do their teaching, and just in working with the patients at the center, that helped me a great deal, because I thought that was about us creating access for the patients to get medicine, but really it was about for all of us to start working with the patients on an individual basis, so that we could start to learn really gain that knowledge. So a couple of years of that, 8 hours a day, you know what I mean?
What's the name of that college?
Northeastern Institute of Cannabis, but it's going to be moved now probably to Fall River. It's closed down right now. But there's all sorts of seminars. The Boston Freedom Rally is coming up. That's a great, resource. I know it's a little ways away from here, but September 15th, 16th, and 17th, there'll be an education village there. We'll be doing some presenting and a lot of educational classes there throughout the day. It's all free. So that's a great opportunity, and it's legal up there, so everybody can smoke openly and kind of get connected with the network. But those type of rallies aren't for everybody. Some folks, want to sit down and have a more intimate, type of consultation. So those things are available for folks too. Dr. Pecher and I have been talking about trying to start some satellite classes or things like that for folks that want to be able to sort of log onto the computer and maybe talk with us for 15 minutes or a half hour and kind of ask some more personal questions, or you don't want to have to take the half-hour drive, you know what I mean? So if folks have computer access and things like that, that's something that we're going to, start to try to be able to work out as well, so folks don't feel lost in the process or don't feel like they're getting bamboozled or not getting proper information. I don't know everything about everything, but I know a couple things about a couple things, and if I don't have the answer, I'm pretty sure one of my friends does, so.
Are there particular websites or if I want to learn more?
Yeah, medical marijuana.
Research and
Yeah, I like the medical marijuana 411, I believe, is one that's a good one. Leafly, I'm kind of a fan of it. It's not my favorite website, but it's pretty easy to get around if you want to learn different strains. Just familiarize yourself with some names of strains, but unfortunately in Connecticut, I think they block them from you anyway, so that's not really helpful.
So if I wanted, for example, to research the use of medical marijuana with glaucoma,
Just Google that.
um,
Use of medical marijuana with glaucoma, right? And you'll find droves of studies and you'll start to kind of see different sites that come up more than others, ones that are for it, ones that are against it. I can't like name a bunch off the top of my head right now, but there's tons of them out there that you'll see that are like consistent. And I mean, there's so much information out there now versus what there was 10 or 15 years ago. It's like unreal. And you can click, when you Google it, you can click like video as well. You know how the tabs are up top, picture or video. So sometimes it's easier to look at it like in a pie chart form. Sometimes it's easier to watch a video on it on YouTube because the way, you know, reading can get boring or these words get big and it's, I mean, I can't understand some of them either. So sometimes if you click on video, it'll direct you to some really cool ones that'll show you like there's one where you can watch autophagy happen. Autophagy is the process where THC attacks and kills the cancer. There's actually ones where you can watch that like literally happen. It's pretty cool. So just kind of helps you like see it and learn about it in real form or why is it better in this form or not in that form based on the condition. So I suggest if anybody has a condition, medical cannabis and leukemia, medical cannabis and chronic pain, things like that, medical cannabis and Crohn's. I mean, that's sort of how some of us gained our initial knowledge. And then back in the day, I just started the Rhode Island cannabis community, and we kind of had meetings once a month in little farmers markets and filled out postcards and sent them to our legislators and just kind of built these bridges wherever we could, and kind of how we got here, right? I use a term because I'm not afraid to say it. Slang and weed sacks got me here. That's how I got here.
so based on what you've learned, are there any medical conditions that you would say where medical marijuana is contraindicated?
Yeah, absolutely.
So how does one learn about that if the pharmacist doesn't
There are like
provide that?
20 medicines in the world that contradict with cannabis, and I think you know a couple of them.
So blood thinners in general, so Coumadin, you have to be careful. It's not saying that you can't do it, but you have to closely monitor until you figure out the right dose of the Coumadin. Usually in general you need less of any medication. So whether it's blood pressure medication, diabetic medications, medications for asthma, hypertension, it's very interesting. You actually need less of the medication and ultimately none
When
of
you're
the
on
medication
cannabis.
once you figure out the cannabis dose. It's very interesting. We presented a poster a couple of years ago at Harvard outlining about 50 patients that were able to come off of most of their medications.
So they don't come off of it before they start the,
No, it's gradual.
it's just a gradual
Yeah.
and
Their
so-
blood pressure comes down, they no longer need the medicine,
Yeah.
or it gets too low so the doctor tapers it down or stops it. Working with the doctor.
Cannabis
So-
medicine is medicine, right? So it's no different than if you add any other medicine to your regimen, what are you gonna do? You're gonna monitor it, right? You're gonna get blood work done, and so we ask that doctors don't treat it it's a medicine, right? So we ask that they normalize and treat it just like anything else, and we just wanna monitor and make sure that we're being responsible in our dosing. And it ends up, like she said, a lot of times folks end up increasing their dose of cannabis a little bit and coming off a lot of the other things that generally don't cause interactions. And then there's a few others, and I know there was an Alzheimer medication, and I don't know the name of it. That was doesn't have the greatest reaction. But what they were finding is, in that whole benefit outweighs the risk thing, while we can't build up, what is that, serotonin that you need to be built up? Well, cannabis obviously can't build up serotonin in the body. You can adjust that medicine to a different medicine, that then the CBDs work great for the tremors and all those other sort of tics and things that come out in the memory loss, oddly, and things like that. So there is a way to sort of work around it and bob and weave and get a good combination for every patient usually.
So Dr. Pecher, if somebody comes to you and you're the prescribing doctor for the medical marijuana, you are going to go through their medical history, you're going to go through, look at their medications and provide some guidance in
Well,
some way.
This is the reality. So in
Okay.
Connecticut, I'm not allowed to give any medical advice regarding the cannabis. So I cannot tell you, start on this strain, start on this dose, things like that. That's why we have this forum where your peers can educate you,
Okay.
okay? But what I can do is look at your medications and tell you, okay, caution here with this one. You know, if I'm your primary care doctor, I can work with you more closely. If I'm not your primary care doctor, as is the case in some cases, then I say, okay, well, make sure you discuss what it's gonna do here, okay? Attention, Mark, make sure you discuss this at your next appointment. You know, so we'll help like that, but I can't give you advice on dose and strains and things like this. That's why we have this forum here.
And that's why we're talking about kind of expanding on that, so folks can tap into that
Because
resource
there's a
and
missing piece
consult.
here.
It's
There's a
huge.
missing
Yeah,
It's ridiculous.
piece,
Yeah.
that's
The
terrible.
pharmacist can't help you, you
Yeah.
are allowed to do it, it's.
yeah,
Yep, so, and I was going to say, so Jonathan Harris, the former commissioner for the Department of Consumer Protection in Connecticut, he's a very nice gentleman and he spearheaded this medical marijuana program for Connecticut. And he outlined very nicely their vision and goal for eventually patients being able to grow themselves. There has to be some critical mass of patients reached so that, I guess, the investors recoup their investment, the people who put all the millions into the grows and whatnot. So there is a vision and a plan. And so he actually has stepped down as the commissioner because he's running for governor. And the new commissioner is Michelle Siegel, a wonderful lady, and we are gonna have her here also speaking, and that would be the time to ask about these kind of things. Hey guys, how come we have this terrible gap?
Yep.
Because they may not realize, you know, they need to hear it from you, the patients.
Running for governor of Connecticut?
and
Yes, he is.
and can I just say,
Yes, he is.
can I just say of all the suits that I've dealt with, he was one of the most down to earth,
Yeah.
humble,
We're gonna
openly
get some
saying it
votes.
like it is. He had no problem saying on camera, people need to make their money back. This is like, he had no problem saying like, you know, but where this is the projection, this is the plan.
Yeah, he-
Whereas other places really don't even have a plan, or they don't have the cojones to say it, certainly not while the camera's rolling. So I do give that man credit for, he was a little bit under fire a little bit, and I mean, he really seemed to care, and he's open to folks. So if you have questions or wanna
What's
reach
his
out to
name
him in the
again?
meantime, Jonathan Harris.
Harris with 2 R's, and we will be doing some political fundraising. I usually don't get involved in these kind of things, being a Canadian, but in this case, we
That's a
will
good
help him out because he has some great ideas about repurposing buildings and some social infrastructure that needs to change. You know, there's so many things that, the trauma that people are experiencing from childhood and leads to addiction and self-medication, on and on. I mean, this whole cycle needs to.
Yeah, and he gets it, and he also, like, even with the whole, like, where there was, like, no dispensaries open, and then, like, I don't know, 6 opened up, like, all around him, like, he pioneered that, because he literally, like, went around from place to place and was like, wait a minute, I don't care who needs to make their money back, why does a patient have to drive 2 hours, you know what I mean? So he is, like, at least a realist in those terms, and I do think that it's important that we continue to let him know what our struggles are, because hopefully, you know, he'll remain on our side.
He will, and we'll have him here again for another meeting, I'm quite sure. So we'll let you know, we'll email everybody, I don't know if we have your emails. If
Still a
you would like
politician,
to
don't
write
get
them
me
down
wrong.
for me.
But-
I have a question. In general medicine, there are differences in pediatric, adult, and geriatric dosing of things. Is that kind of information also available on the internet?
Yeah, there are,
Specific age populations?
absolutely. I can tell you it's mainly based on what we're treating and body weight. So not unlike most medicines, again, it's what condition, what other medications are they taking, what forms of cannabis have you tried before, you know, and then what does the person weigh, and then what benefit do we get, you know, once we try that amount, and we build from there. So, children and geriatric patients tend to need the smallest dose and get the quickest reaction. We actually treated a friend of mine's grandmother with some tincture who was on hospice care for 2 years, trying every Ativan and every other medicine that they could possibly do to put her out of her misery, basically. And this woman would flail on her bed and just, you know, like, this were the last 2 years, and we treated her with cannabis tincture, 5 milligram to 10 milligram doses for less than a week, and she passed peacefully in her sleep. So the receptors do react to it, and there is something, a different strain for, depending on whatever you're trying to accomplish.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Would you want to talk over anything specific?
Maybe, why don't you give us some of your baking tips? You have some beautiful things.
She's an
that
artist. You are, you're
Yes,
an artist.
I'm really good at.
I'm a hustler, homie, is what I am. You have a question, then we'll talk about that.
I was just gonna ask you, do you have a card?
Yeah, I just forgot. But yeah, I can give you my information, my email, my contact on Facebook, my number if you need it.
On Facebook?
Give you my email and my number.
Phone number?
That's fine. So what were we gonna say? Oh, baking tips. Okay, so never bake over 350. That's kind of the basic tip that I'll give you. I kind of stay around the 300 to 310 range, and you just cook them for a little bit longer. Anything that's cooked in an oven is always gonna cook for 3 minutes on the outside of the oven. So if you want that yummy ooey gooey love, always undercook and let it finish cooking on the outside of the oven. There's a reason for those silly racks that take forever to scrub.
You
Decarbing.
take it out of the oven and put it on top of the oven?
And then put it on the rack immediately. Get it away from the heat, because the heat that's contained inside of that
Okay,
is still gonna cook.
got you. So you take the cookie or whatever it is, brownie,
Mhm.
whatever, and you put it onto a rack for cooling purposes.
Yeah, and in those 3 minutes, it's gonna kind of finish doing what it's doing. But you always wanna undercook, medical cannabis stuff, just a smidgen, but that way can generally lasts longer that way. Stays around, doesn't go stale that way. But another trick is some folks will say you're making you don't wanna make a whole batch of something. So say you have a stick of butter, or you buy some concentrate from the dispensary and it's decarbed, and you infuse it into a stick of melted butter, and now you're like, okay, this whole stick of melted butter, what am I gonna make with it? Well, if I make a whole batch of cookies, I'm gonna eat them all, or what am I gonna do with them? You can actually freeze your dough, or anything that you make, and you can roll it into individual portions, and then just freeze it, and then just, bake 1 or 2 at a time or something like that.
The butter itself, Don Oates, a former speaker, mentioned that there was some kind of butter machine. that you
Magic
can
butter.
buy.
There's tons of them out there. A lot of folks like the magic butter machine. It's probably $150 retail now. It used to be $250. And you can get them right online, but you can actually make a tincture or a butter in that. So that's pretty cool, and it's kind of like a set it and forget it, automatic temperature. You just put your material and your glycerin or your butter or whatever your base is that you're using into this machine, and for 8 hours, and then strain it out. And you have pretty potent material to work with. It's nice to create those bases, because once you have those bases at home, you can convert those into different recipes. You can take, if you do it in an oil, and blend a little bit of it into a barbecue sauce. It doesn't have to be a brownie or something like that. So those machines are all out there, and there's the Ganja Grandma. There's thousands of folks out there with cookbooks and videos and cooking tips and all things like that, that are making great recipes that are infusing it into healthy meals. They're making granolas and things like that. So our honeys.
Ganja Grandma?
Yeah. That's what my mom has RA, and that's what I make caramels for her, and that's what helps her sleep and remain pain free, and she doesn't need many of them, and that's just what works for her. They had her on so many, enough to kill a horse pain medicine wise, and it just wasn't helping. So we decided to go in a different direction. But she didn't believe it at first. It took me waiting till I got the actual job at the actual dispensary before she would try it. And now she's like, you got any of them caramel scraps? It's not crack, Jesus. So
Approved in Connecticut, can you buy at a Rhode Island
No.
dispensary?
No, so Rhode Island offers reciprocity in terms of possession, but not in terms of purchasing or, things like that. So you can certainly travel to Rhode Island or Massachusetts with your medicine on hand. If you have no more than 2.5 ounces in Rhode Island, you're fine. What is in Mass, 2 ounces? In Mass, and you're fine. Oh, it's legal there. So, if you don't have a card, it's 1 ounce. If you do have a card, it's 2. And they offer reciprocity as well, Maine as well. So there are a lot of states that you can travel to, but unfortunately you can't access the medicine yet. Maine, though, you can. So that's one that... New Hampshire, it doesn't even have medical yet, but they're working on it. We're working on them. So you can look at New Hampshire, Rhode Island, and Vermont pretty closely this year with Common Forum. Mark my words. I think Rhode Island's gonna take another 2 years though, and bastards get me every time. But we're working on it. So I don't know, baking tips are just, my ingredient, I always say my medicine is infused with THC and made with love. It really is, right? You gotta like to cook. If you don't like to cook, don't waste the medicine. Have somebody come over that likes to cook, right? Don't, or that's when the dispensary like comes in handy, right? So, Melissa Bouchard, you can catch me on Facebook, Melissa and then the number 2, ride.com is my email.
Can you say that a little slower?
Yeah, MELISSABOU,
Wait.
MELISSA, sorry mom, BOUCHARD. And then my email is Melissa, spelled the same way, and then the number 2, ride, RIDE.com.
I have 2 things. First of all, how much do you charge
4.
for consultation?
I'm kind of still working that out. I don't, usually charge, but Dr. Pecher's telling me I've gotta,
You have to make
get a
living.
washer and dryer in my house one of these days like a big kid.
Yeah.
So, so right now it's on a per case basis, depends on your situation, really. We can talk about that. I'm usually fair. I'm fair.
I'm sure you are. Just listening to you, I can see you love people and want to share. But have you ever heard of cyclic vomiting
Yes.
syndrome? My son suffers from that.
Okay.
Horribly, yeah. And I just was wondering, have you heard of it now occurring more often?
Yeah.
Is it-
Yeah,
How
so
it's
actually, funny joke, I'm sorry for your son having it, but my ex had it and now that's why he's my ex, because I'm like, wait, I cannot date a guy that can't keep up with me, right? I mean, like, come on, sorry, next, but, so it's like, if this makes you throw up, you gotta go. But what it is that, basically high doses of cannabis, in a concentrated form can induce what you said, cyclic vomiting syndrome. So just projectile vomiting, and there are just some folks, and now that cannabis is become, more legal or more accessible, and folks are accessing it in higher concentration, it's kind of coming out more. But it's something that's always been there. Why do some folks smoke a certain strain and they kind of get heart palpitations and sweaty and anxious, and someone else is like, okay, this feels great, right? Why can someone drink, a bottle of wine and have a good time, and someone else have a glass of it, and it affects them differently. Everybody's system is differently. So it's not that the cannabis is bad or poisoned or anything like that. It's I think got to do with that enzyme conversion. Some convert it too quickly and some don't convert it at all, and some convert it just right. And those ones that convert it very quickly and it's already in a concentrated form, it will induce a nausea, no different than your body trying to expel any other too much of something else.
Well, I'll tell you, with him, his is absolutely debilitating.
Yes.
He rides on the floor in pain, and the only thing that will relieve it is Dilaudid.
Okay, so peppercorn. You can research online, but there are a lot of things a few things anyway, that can sort of get somebody to come down, but peppercorn is one of them. So keep peppercorns on hand, and if somebody ever takes a little bit too much of an edible, have them chew on that. Or you can wave, if you just have an alcohol pad. Or an alcohol pad.
You smell the pepper,
Mhm.
fresh ground.
Yeah, just grind it up and put it over, or get it if you have an
As
alcohol.
it's happening, as the attack is happening,
Yeah,
you do this.
Yeah. Or just wipe that under his nose, something like that, can help bring him out of it. Just know that you cannot overdose from cannabis. It's physically impossible. You can take too much of it, where it creates vomiting or enuresis, or you can wet yourself, things like that if you take too much of it. But you have to be responsible in your consumption, just like anything else, right? Too much caffeine, right? Too much turkey, but turkey's not, anything can make you throw up if you take too much of it, right? So there are ways out of it, but just know, as long as you stay hydrated, you don't really need to call the feds or anything. You will come down in 24 to 48 hours. You will not die. You will learn your lesson that yes, there was something in that brownie, and yes, it really does take 2 hours to kick in.
Yes, it does.
That's what
Yeah.
happens.
We've all been there.
But know that you really, in experimenting around, there is little to no interactions with other medicines, but just be communicative, you know, just like if you're introducing anything else to your body that is new.
Wonderful, thank you so much,
You're welcome, thank you
Melissa.
guys for coming.
Always, thank you, my dear. Thanks for being here.